Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today I'm going to show you two fun sort of cheating spotlight techniques, because usually the spotlight technique involves some die cutting, and that is not happening today. We are going to do the easier versions, for me at least, much simpler. Now, these stamps here are just some of my favorite. If you have watched my channel, then you will know that I love these gorgeous Woodware, the craft collection stamps. These are such a good price point for such large stamps. They cover the majority of a background. They're absolutely fabulous, and I love the quality. I love the price. Now, these are some of the ones that I could have used today. So this first one is called Floral Wonder. The next one is Petal Trio. The next one, this one is called 5 Daisies, and then the next one is called Passion Flower, and the very last one, which is the one that I'm actually going to use today, is called Clematis Trio. Now, I have tens and tens and tens of videos on my channel. I would hate to say how many, maybe 100, I don't even know, that I use these background stamps, and that's why I purchased a few of them. I absolutely love the designs. I love the big open spaces. Some of them are slightly more detailed, but they are just stunning, and I have done so many different techniques with them. At this point, I feel like I probably need to make a playlist on my channel with them, but such good value. So I am taking this first one. Now, this is all part of the spotlight technique. So the spotlight technique is usually where you highlight or spotlight one sort of area in color, and the rest of it may be grey or grayscale. And so I am going to start off here by doing stamping this in some VersaFine Onyx black ink. I'm just using my usual 110-pound Frenchville brand paper. Now, this is brilliant cardstock. It's what I use for my card bases and my card fronts. Now, I am going to pop some clear embossing powder over top of this. I can do this without adding any sticky embossing ink, because all of the VersaFine clear inks are pigment inks, and they stay wet a little bit longer. This will also mean you can use whatever media you like to create the spotlight, because you're not going to be able to smudge it. Now, for me today, I decided for this one to use some alcohol markers. Again, this just guarantees no matter what type of ink I've used underneath, I cannot smudge it. So once I have heat set it, here's the trick for the spotlight. Now, you can do whatever shape you like. You can do whatever size you like. I have some Hero Arts Infinity Circle dies. Now, I said that there wasn't going to be any die cutting, and I actually did mean it. I am very, very simply going to use these to trace around just as something circular. You could use a roll of tape, you could use a jar lid, you could use a coffee cup, you can use anything you like. I am just getting the size circle, and this is of course what's handy to me because these are at my little craft station. So all I'm just doing is choosing one that I kind of like the size of. I'm taking a pencil and I'm just going to draw around. It doesn't matter if you do the inside or the outside of your shape, it doesn't matter at all. Just make sure that you can get the shape. I am doing pencil because you can choose to erase this. You'll see what I do in a little bit. But again, it's all about personal preference, because there is always options with all of these techniques that we choose, and you sort of choose your options along the way as to what suits you. So I just draw a little circle out. You may even like to stamp this out in some ink and then heat emboss it too. That would be fine. This is the blue turquoise blend from the tri-blend markers, which means there are 3 markers in every individual marker, 3 different shades of that color, and it means you can do all of the blending without having to find 3 shades that go together. Now, I'm not a great alcohol marker colorist. I just have fun playing, really. I don't really have any rhyme or reason as to how I was doing this one today. I just wanted it to be quite blue in the center and quite turquoise for the leaves around the outside. Now, all we are doing is doing the coloring within that circle, and now that I've zoomed in, you can kind of see the pencil mark. So I really am truly just sticking to that, and I'm only doing the flowers and the leaves, etc. I'm actually not going to do the background. You could color that as well if you wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it plain. So I've got a little green pen for the leaves, but honestly this took me just a couple of minutes. I've sped it up. Now, you could leave it without this, but I like the sort of clean look when you add the pen. So that's why I said that you could probably stamp it at the very beginning and just keep it as a permanent feature the whole way. But I prefer to do the circle line, see where I'm going, and then I draw in with a pen. And then this is one easy, cheats way of doing a spotlight technique. There are several ways to do all of this. As I said, this is just one that I'm showing you, and I'll show you another one in just a minute. Now, you could leave it like that and use this as a front panel, but I decided to get chopping because I'm going to take my little fussy cutting scissors. These are the Cutter Bees. I absolutely love these, and I can't see myself changing because I have had these for years and years and years, this exact pair, and I purchased them, I don't know, 9, maybe 10 years ago, and they have never become dull. They don't gun cut. They are beautiful, nice and easy to maneuver. I do suggest if you are doing any fussy cutting that you invest in some pair of sort of fine tipped scissors rather than coming in there, for example, with my big Tim Holtz 9.5 inch ones, or I think there's like a 5 or so inch blade to those. It's just too hard. Now, this is the actual card base, and this is just me winging it. These are not even. It's okay because nobody's going to notice, but I'm just doing some very basic stripes in a couple of different colors. So there's one color at the moment. Here's the next color coming in. They're very close to each other. They're actually the exact colors that I used on the inside. I'm just aiming for a little bit of background noise without it being too much, and this just felt super easy. So then I have my fussy cut image. That didn't take me too long at all. I left a nice little white border as well, so that just made it nice and easy. This one here is called Sunflower Rays. Again, another Woodware one, but it has the most gorgeous little sentiment that says wonderful in every way. And that was just the perfect little sort of delicate scripty sentiment that would go down in the corner there and fit nicely. I wouldn't have to cover up any of my image, and it would balance it out really nice. Just for something a little bit more, because the image, the card itself is quite simple, I'm going to add some foam tape and just make sure I get all of those extra little leaves so that just in case this one ends up going through the mail, I want to make sure that nothing's going to bend or flatten. So I try my best to sort of add as many pieces as I can. And then I'm going to pop this one down onto my card base. This card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. As I said, I just buy a big ream of this paper and then I cut it up into card fronts and card bases, and it is absolutely perfect. It takes alcohol markers. It does blending with alcohol markers beautifully. So it sort of is good for everything. It does ink blending really well. It's all round good. Now, there is card number 1. All I'm going to do is add a couple of these little raindrop clear gems, and these are stunning. I use a little wax pencil to maneuver these around. I think this is meant for nail art. It just picks them up, and then you just, when it gets dull, you just sharpen it one little round, and then these have lasted me. I've never ever purchased a new one, so years and years and years, and I think I may have sharpened it once in that time, but anyway, these are perfect for me, and I think that they cost me around 30 or 40 cents when I purchased them. So I am going to just add a couple of these around. I always do the placement first just to check I like it. Then I add the glue and come in and stick these on. Now I'm going to move on to another way to do the spotlight technique. This one is going to take a little more, mainly because we are going to do some masking with this one. Now this is, I kind of feel like stepping it up a little bit, and I must admit some of my inking was definitely not perfect in this next card, but I think it ends up looking really good. Maybe that's the stamp though. And then this is the stamp. It is called Passionate. And this one is from Penny Black, but there are lots of red rubber stamps like this where they are sort of a solid image rather than an outline like we did in the previous version. So I wanted to show you how you can do it with these as well. And you can still do the spotlight technique, but doing this. Now I'm going to use some Gina K Masking Magic, my absolute favorite when I need something not to fail. I need no ink bleeding through the masking here. So again, I'm just going to sort of line everything up and then get a sized circle that I feel is going to work. Then I'm actually going to cut that in the masking paper. So that little white sheet there, the white rectangle, is the masking magic. I've cut it down to be the same size as my card front, just to make life easier for me when I'm sort of lining things up. So I eyeballed where I roughly wanted it to go, and then to line it up onto my card, I just take off half of the backing of the release paper, line it up, then press down the exposed side, and then I can just undo the other side and it's perfectly even, and then just press everything down really, really well so that we get no ink going where we don't want it to go. Now I am going to use a stamping platform for this one, so I line it up on top of my card base there. Now this has the masking magic on it, so only the middle circle is exposed at the moment. I'm just using some finger daubers, and I'm taking a little bit of inspiration from the picture here. So we're going with kind of bluesy looking flowers and then sort of just different greens for the stems and leaves and anything else. So I'm actually just really having a good play. I love this, and I wanted to do a little bit of comparison in just a minute as well between grey inks, because boy am I forever on the hunt for my favorite grey ink, but I might have found one. Now I am just going through the colors. Sometimes when I use my finger daubers I need to add more ink. Sometimes I can just pick up the dauber and not have to re-ink it with an ink pad, and I really like doing that. Now at some point these daubers sort of weren't getting enough fine detail when I wanted to use different colors, because I want a bit of depth and dimension. So I did end up switching to my little brushes here. So these ones are kind of like, they're kind of like paint brushes, but they have a nice sort of flat base, and the bristles are really short, so there's a lot of control, and I use these for my inking. I can just dab on the ink and they do really, really well. Now I got too heavy-handed here, but I think in the end I thought I'd ruined it. It was going really, really well until here and then I end up sort of right there going way too dark, and I couldn't sort of smooth it out, and at this point I was like, this could be ruined, but let's keep pushing forward and see how we go. So now, without taking off the other backing, I'm going to put the circle, the insert, in there. So now it's kind of almost one complete sheet. Now, just before we go, I'm going to go off on a little side tangent, you know me, but I'm going to remove the background bit. So now there's just the middle, and this is where the spotlight is, because the spotlight is the color, and I want the background to be grey. Now here is where I'm doing some testing. This is the Twilight ink from Catherine Paula, and I want to do a full strength test and then a stamped off, so a second generation. Now isn't this stamp gorgeous just as is? But before the ink dried too much, I wanted to try and get a second generation stamping. So you can see it's absolutely gorgeous. It stamped really well the first time and kind of not super great the second time. There wasn't a lot of ink there. Then this is the Morning Mist from VersaFine Clear. Now one of these is a dye ink and one is a pigment. So I'm not comparing the inks, I'm just comparing the outcome essentially. So this one is the stamped from the VersaFine. Then I'm going to switch it over and get the second generation. And again, I was wondering if one of these inks would be better than the other, but of course there's the full stamping ones, and both of them are stunning. Both are stamped so crisply. There is nothing that has missed a beat there with any of the inking. And honestly, the second generations are about the same, because I think that the VersaFine, the Morning Mist, so the one on the left, is just a slightly darker ink to begin with. It's a slightly darker grey. Now, given that one is a dye ink and one that is a pigment ink, it's very hard to tell the difference. These are both stunning. I do love Catherine Paula's inks for how well and how crisp they stamp and how full coverage you get on solid images. Now this stamp here is obviously more of a solid image than an outline image. I chose to go with the Twilight color. I do really like this. So I'm going to give some good pressure, because remember we've got the mask there. So what I'm trying to do when I give good pressure is I'm trying to get as close into the mask. So it's kind of like there's a little lip that I'm trying to make sure I get as close to as possible. Now I'm going to peel this off my sticky grid. That's what I have in the background of my stamping platforms, so that I don't have to use magnets at all now. Now here is where we're going to have the reveal. Obviously the mask is still covering up the colour, and so this is where we kind of get to see if it all worked out. Now this looks really nice. There is still a little lip around there, and so I did decide again to put the mask back on, and I'm going to take a fine liner pen and go around it. I like this look for the spotlight technique, but some people like it to be sort of nice and smooth. I think it looks not quite defined enough perhaps for my liking, so I'm just going to go around here. I could have used the die, but I was just using the edge of the masking paper to go around it, and then I lift it off, and I think it looks a little bit more complete, and I like that spotlight effect. I cannot wait to do another few techniques with this stamp though. I think it looks stunning, and even just with the grey, stamped in the grey, I think this is gorgeous. So I'm excited to use this one. I've got this one coming up in a few videos too. Now this is the Sunny Studios. I have used, this is just such a gorgeous watering can, which I know is a funny sentence to say, but I love simple stamps. I'm not into layering stamps a whole lot because they take a long time to line up and it just takes me longer, and I think I like quick. So I am just going to use the same Twilight ink here. All I'm using from that stamp set is the sentiment which says thinking of you. I'm going to stack it instead of having it side by side. Pop this up on some foam tape. This is a really simple card. It's a gorgeous little thinking of you card. Again, popping it onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, but I did cut the actual frame down to be 4 by 5 1/4. And then this just gives it a nice little bit of lift from the background. I am going to add a few more of those little clear raindrop gems again, just because I think it finishes off the card, but you can absolutely leave those off if you would like to as well. So here are the two cards side by side. I hope you have enjoyed the sort of two cheats versions or quicker versions of creating the spotlight technique. Of course, I will have everything linked down below in case you're wanting to check them out, even just have a better look at them. I appreciate that. I also appreciate those who support me through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Thank you so much. But other than that, thank you, and I will see you in the next video.